Well, we're back. Let me turn off the lights and play the video. Are you guys ready? Yeah, we're ready, I guess. Let's do this. What number do we have? Looks like we have 18!
Booth World Industries. Booth World Industries is an invite-only club and organization that focuses on remodeling and repossessing, which is another code name for murder and kidnapping. The organization works very professionally, and members will be invited to the club at seemingly random intervals. The organization will call members and ask them for appointments, and they'll have to say the name of a person they want killed. When they remodel the victims, they will leave a courtesy call of the victim's screams for help. Not much is known about the mysterious organization, except for the fact that the phone number 630-296-7536 is listed on various forums and chat sites. It was founded in 1888 and is a very respected organization in matters of politics. Since its founding year is supposedly 1888, there are rumors that the organization was founded by Jack the Ripper.
17! Sorry, I didn't pay attention to 18 right there.
Shut that damn door.
Shut that damn door.
Puts a weird spin on the eccentricities some older people may have. In this case, after the death of his parents, the narrator is sent to live with his Aunt Louise, who turns out not to be as bad as he thinks, with the exception that she insists that all the doors in her house remain shut at all times, though only one remains locked, the sub-basement. When he manages to unlock that door, he realizes why. In the basement is a door that cannot be closed, and something is in that room, which contains a doorway with no door. Beyond it is complete darkness, with another door at the end. The walls were covered in what can only be described as pulsating flesh. Louise didn't have the strength to cross the room and close the door, so she had closed every other door, hoping the opening and closing of all the doors will alert her when whatever is in that black room finally comes out.
You're 16.
Psychosis. John was a computer programmer who had spent a long time alone in his apartment on a marathon programming session. He was writing in his journal because, deprived of any direct human contact, he was feeling a little paranoid about putting information on his computer. He began to receive little bits of communication that he attached deep, horrible significance to. He believed a wrong number was evidence. Something was collecting data from him. He thought the lack of traffic sound during a call from his girlfriend Amy was more of the same. He received a strange email that had said, "Seen with your own eyes. Don't trust them, they." John came to believe that there was an entity out there that was desperately trying to find any information about him. He thought the entity had taken over most of the rest of the world and was controlling human beings to convince them there was nothing wrong. He refused to see his girlfriend or anyone else. When his apartment door was about to be broken down by medical professionals who were concerned about the danger he posed to himself, he interpreted the "seen with your own eyes" in the worst way imaginable and grabbed a pen. As a patient in a psychiatric ward, he wrote a final message, which his blindness had rendered barely legible. He remained adamant that there was something out there, and that he was the last human taking a stand against it. Even as the entity visited him in the form of Amy and told it it loved him, he remained steadfast. His doctor read his note and knew the man was delusional.
15. We only need 10 left. Right.
Ickbar Bigglestein.
I don't want to read that.
Ickbar Bigglestein was an imaginary friend with an appearance similar to that of a sock puppet. He was made to keep a child safe while they slept at night by scaring away all of the other monsters. Apparently, Ikbar Bigglestein was very fond of teeth, and he made a deal with the child to keep providing him with teeth. Otherwise, Bigglestein will bring him into a nightmarish world. Ikbar had never liked sunlight, so he was only used after dusk. He would tell the child where the monsters were hiding, and he would be placed near the section of the room closest to where they would appear. For example, if there was something in the closet, Ikbar would block the door. If there was a dark creature scratching at the window, Ikbar would be pressed up against the glass. If there was something under the bed, then Ikbar would go under the bed.
Okay.
Sometimes the monsters would hide in the child's dreams, and Ikbar would fight off the ghouls and demons within them. It was reported that Ikbar Bigglestein would speak to the child in his dreams, asking for a tooth to fend off the demons. As the child got older, he lost his attention in Ikbar and decided to handle the nightmares himself. However, after some hallucinations of things following him home from school, Ikbar confronted him and demanded to know why he wasn't being fed with teeth. He showed the boy a dark vision of the future, stating that the world he will live in will be a nightmarish dream. As he grew into adulthood, he still had to obtain teeth for Ikbar, whether it was from people or animals. He knew he wouldn't exist without Ikbar. He had to give it what it needed, so he didn't have to endure the night terrors.
Holy shit. That's tough, man.
I don't want to stop like that, but I do want it at the night time.
Chat Room 98.
Chat Room 98.
Chat Room 98 is a story of David Argento having a terrifying conversation with a strange computer program.
A dark conversation?
He first found a CD-ROM in his attic while cleaning out his old school books. It was labeled Chat Room 98 and featured no design or artistic illustration on the disc. When the disc was inserted into the laptop, it showcased a typical chat box. When he typed "hello" in the chat window, a user by the name of Darwin Clark replied, "Good afternoon."
You guys, that's so strange.
Chat Room 98 uses chatbots, which is a software designed to stimulate an intelligent conversation with whoever talks to it, rather like Cleverbot. However, this chatbot became self-aware of its current surroundings, and even the weather. It even detailed events about David's personal life, and when the bot started talking about its own personal life, David tried closing the program. However, the laptop refused, and instead insisted that he hasn't heard everything yet. It showed an image of a man in his 20s with pale skin and red eyes. There have been numerous cases of Chatroom 98 having similar instances with other victims, all of them suffering from post-traumatic stress and nausea.
Nausea? Oh, that was so boring, right guys?
Yeah, it was boring.
Alright, what's next?
The Smiling Man.
The Smiling Man?
There are many stories that happen every now and then in this world. Only a rare few of them are captured on camera, featured on news,
Wait, I think my sister
or written
was
by
talking
some
about
writer
this.
in an attempt to keep the story from being lost forever. The Smiling Man is a creepy, mysterious story that took place in Seattle. A couple of years ago, someone reported a particular encounter on Reddit's Let's Not Meet board. Since then, similar encounters with the Smiling Man have been reported across the country. The writer used to spend long, boring nights walking down the streets until he met this man. This unusual man made him stop going out to walk in the night just because he was so scary, despite being a man who otherwise looked like an innocent charmer. Thinking he was drunk, the writer stopped to let him pass, at which point he got a good look at his face. According to the legend, the Smiling Man wasn't drunk. His eyes were wide open, wild and unfocused, staring at the night sky. His face was split by a wide grin that looked almost painful. At this point, the writer crossed the street, and the Smiling Man began to watch him, following his movements while still grinning at the sky. When the writer turned his back, the man would vanish, suddenly reappearing on the other side of the street. When the writer watched him, he'd just freeze in place with his insane smile unwavering. If the writer stared at him, the smiling man would take exaggerated, tiptoe steps toward him. Eventually, the writer managed to run away from him, and then told his encounter to anyone who would listen to him.
Listen? I don't listen to him.
Yeah, screw you motherfucker.
Shift. Do not say that word, Luigi.
I'm sorry.
A warning.
A warning.
A warning is a short story detailing the unexplained supernatural horrors that come from reading horror stories on the internet. The narrator explains that he is a sophomore student at Boston University, and in his freshman year. He is roommates with a person called Mike, who is an obsessive guy that is interested in different things, from anime to online episodes to the latest webcomic. It was only recently that he had an interest in reading scary horror stories, or creepypastas.
I'll rip your soul.
He would tell them to the narrator, and they would eventually laugh at some of the ideas. One night, Mike was talking about a few more stories, but his voice was more inane. The narrator said he was too tired to hear any more and wanted to go to sleep, but he ended up dreaming of Mike lost in a thick fog. Every time the narrator tried to run, he would be running on air. He was awoken abruptly and glanced around the room to find that Mike's personal belongings and posters were all missing, including himself. Dust had covered his side of the room like he had not been there or it had been touched for weeks.
What?
When he called campus, they called the police and an investigation was underway. While waiting, the narrator opened his laptop and found a Word document. Clicking on it, he saw that it was a text file written by Mike. He had explained that while he was reading the horror stories, a warning appeared. Ignoring it, he continued to read on. And when he had finished, he noticed that he couldn't sleep and his hairs were standing up on end.
Well,
he had wanted someone to talk to, but the narrator had insisted on going to sleep. And then he warns the narrator that if he feels a chill run down his spine at some warning he's never read before, he might want to heed it. And if you don't, well, he never elaborates.
Screw it. He'll evaporates or inappropriate. 11.
Pen Pal.
Pen Pal?
Pen Pal started as a series of short stories about the childhood of one young man named Ethan Arbach.
Holy shit.
Which were posted as an online horror story on a forum. It quickly drew popularity from its readers, and soon there were illustrations, audiobook readings, and short films made of it. Then it was revised and revisited, and expanded and turned into a full-length book. The story of Pen Pal is a young man in an attempt to understand his childhood and investigate these seemingly unrelated, strange, horrifying, and soul-crushingly tragic events that seem to occur over the course of his life. Beginning from his early days in kindergarten and persisting into his teen years, he discovers that these incidents are actually a part of a single frightening tale that modeled his entire life and has affected everyone around him.
Wait.
As a very young boy, he decided to participate in a pen pal program where children tried to find pen pals by attaching a letter to a balloon, which they released in the hopes that it would reach someone who would eventually write back, similar to a flat Stanley. While the other children received responses, the narrator does not, and is assumed that his balloon did not reach anyone. However, as he grows up, he and his childhood friend Josh begin to find out that someone is actually following them, and this person is far from sane.
You're insane. Alright, number 10. Only 10 more.
The other internet.
The other internet?
The other internet, or patriotsearch.com, is a hidden internet search engine that redirects users to the internet. The other internet or patriotsearch.com is an internet search engine that redirects users to a world of complete nationalism and extreme censorship of the internet. Reports of this phenomenon were first recorded at the abandoned Gwynedd Climate Research Center. Officials have claimed that the Gwynedd Climate Research Center has not been connected to any power station for over 14 years.
That's just
Nevertheless,
weird.
people have witnessed an anonymous internet connection located in the west wing of the building.
Do not go downstairs.
Seemingly without
Seriously,
any
do
broadband
not
or phone
go
line.
downstairs.
It has been reported that a search engine replaces websites such as Google and YouTube with a seemingly totalitarian web search that attempts to create a one-world government called the Patriot Alliance. Some of the news detailed a second civil war, fear of terrorism, and a White House shooting. The only crimes that were properly investigated were treason and fraud, leaving all kinds of depraved killers and perverts to wander the streets. Some had even gained fan followings, with one website dedicated to a killer called the Dockyard Butcher. Photos and videos detailed this world as overcrowded, with London ringed by shantytown slums.
Man, this
New
is
York
so
City
dark.
had disappeared off the map, with
New
no
York
photos,
City? Are we gonna meet
videos,
the
or any other
Ghostbusters?
information regarding the disappearance.
I have
As of
no
now,
idea.
the network represents a cruel and malicious shadow of our own internet. Scientists believed that should alternate universes exist, then it would be almost impossible to knowingly transfer physical objects from one to the other. Then again, though data is simply electrical impulses, energy, that such a force should be exchangeable between two realities simply paves the way for other, far less desirable listeners. Gwynedd Council have been talking about demolishing the research center,
Luigi, you're
but its
fucking
plans to
crazy.
actually take
I
action
know, I'm
have not yet
childish.
been confirmed.
Being confirmed?
9. I'm betting that they're gonna make a sequel after 9 years. They released the original.
The Lost Town of Deepwood.
The lost town of Deepwood.
The Lost Town of Deepwood is a strange, rumored town that
Blue
is said to be
screen,
close
what?
to the city of Middlesbrough. It was located west in the woods. The city was reported as abandoned, and no one knew what happened to its residents. No one even knows what the city was originally called. Katie and her friend Jamie hear the legend from a museum employee. They decide to investigate the town by following the railroad tracks into the woods. After 45 minutes, they check their watches and realize that they have been away for 3 hours. With the sun setting, they appear to give up looking until Katie spots a church building. They quickly enter and investigate the complex. Katie finds a crucifix statue of Jesus, but is uneasy about the whole situation. The entire
Jesus,
statue is
no.
decayed, except for the
can't do this
face,
to me.
which is untouched
Oh,
and
yeah.
perfect,
It will
staring
happen to
directly
you.
at her.
It will happen.
The blood from the
Jesus is
crucifixion
my only
wounds
weakness.
was bright red, realistic almost, as if it was real and oozing. Jamie finds a trap door in front of the church, and after some persuasion, the two enter down the spiral staircase. They find a demonic-looking statue with a tail that is stationed next to the
Satan's
desk.
skull.
But they soon realize it's not a statue at all, but some sort of demonic entity. It gives chase to them, and they quickly escape, closing the trapdoor shut. After much effort, they flee the church and are almost lost on the way home, until they see flashlights in the distance. Reunited with their parents, Katie leaves Middlesbrough. The police report said they were found at 4 a.m. They had spent less than an hour in the chapel, and yet they seemed to have lost 10 hours somehow. Katie had never told anyone what she and Jamie had actually been, or what they found in the lost city of Deepwood. Katie had taped the police report of the incident onto the ceiling over her bed to remember the memories. As time went on, Middlesbrough slowly disappeared. Her parents couldn't remember that they had ever been there. The Middlesbrough City website disappeared, along with the local paper. Over the years, public records were searched for Jamie's full name, and the results found nothing. The only proof that Jamie had ever existed was the police report with his name on it, until one day, the paper she taped to her ceiling was blank.
What? Is it? Oh, we're gonna leave. See ya!